Good morning, everyone. Wow, these lights are blinding. So I lead Cherry Bekaert's technology and health and life sciences practice, and we are certainly pleased to continue to support TAG and the summit. And clearly, this is one of the largest gatherings of technology professionals in the state. I also was privileged to serve on the Judges Committee for the Top 40 Innovators program. And I will tell you, it was an amazing group of applicants this year. Very difficult to come to the top 40, much less the top 10. And you'll get a chance, obviously, today to hear from those top 10. So there's really no doubt that we have quite a lot of innovation happening in the state of Georgia. So I'm also pleased, and my firm is a firm of CPAs and advisors, and we're focused on serving growth companies. And we understand that innovation and growth go hand in hand. So we're pleased today to announce the launch of a specialty practice around innovation for technology, health, and industrial companies called Think. And we'd love to talk to you more about that. You can come by our booth, and it's the booth with the giant floating green brain on it. So with that said, I'm here to kick off the summit with our first speaker. So I'm proud to introduce Jim Chen, Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and Associate General Counsel with Tesla. Jim joined Tesla in August of 2010. He's based in Washington, D.C., and he's responsible for all aspects of government affairs and regulation at the international, federal, and state levels for Tesla. He also serves as the company's Associate General Counsel, where he is tasked with ensuring compliance with the legal requirements applicable to Tesla's product and facilities. In his spare time, he also assists on business deals for the company, including furthering Tesla relationships with strategic partners in the automobile industry. So please join me in TAG in welcoming Jim Chen with Tesla.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing today? Good. I'm really honored to be here and honored to be able to tell you a little bit more about our little company. It's amazing that it's been 4.5 years since I joined the company. I was their outside counsel for 2 years before that. And Tesla, to me, really represented an opportunity to try something different and to do something different, and frankly, to make a change in the world. When I started, we were a company of 400 employees. Today, we have 11,000 worldwide. And interestingly enough, even with that many employees, all of us at Tesla still do more than one job. We still have that startup mentality of needing to run hard, needing to run fast, to do it better, to do it more efficient. Basically, to disrupt the technology, to take technology and disrupt the status quo. And I think it's apropos that the whole theme of this is disruptors in technology, because at the end of the day, that's what Tesla really is. So let me get right into the presentation. What is our mission? Our mission is very simple. It's summed up in a single phrase: to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable transportation by inspiring the mass adoption of electric vehicles. You'll notice that it's not just US focused. It's not just regional. It's worldwide. You'll also notice that we don't talk about trying to get everybody in a Tesla, but to get everyone in an electric vehicle. And that's what the mission is all about. It's to get us away from the monopoly that oil has on our light-duty transportation sector and go to a more sustainable method of getting people around. So how are we going to do that? And some of you will see this map and think it looks very familiar. It is the classic new technology method. Think of the cell phone from the 1980s. That was a $5,000 device. Hard to believe these days right now, but it's what I like to call the Gordon Gekko phone after the Wall Street. Only high net worth individuals could afford that phone, but it proved the viability of the cellular network. You could make a phone call from everywhere, anywhere. You weren't tied to a landline. Well, that's what we're trying to do with electric vehicles. And by the way, Motorola was smart. They took all that money, they rolled it into the next phone, into the next phone, and through economies of scale and iteration of the technology, at one point we were all carrying around $20 flip phones. Something that when the Motorola StarTAC was first introduced, people called it, Star Trek technology. Now, of course, we're all carrying around smartphones that are essentially supercomputers, and they carry more computing power than the Apollo 11 rocket ship that took our astronauts to the moon and back. Well, so Tesla is trying to do that with electric vehicles, and we started out small. Our first generation car was the Roadster, a two-seat sports car that went 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds and had 245 miles of range. We only made 500 of those, and they started at a base price of over $100,000. And most of those were optioned up to about 135. 500 a year, 4 years, we produced worldwide roughly 2,500 vehicles in that time. But what it did was it proved that electric vehicles didn't have to be boring. They didn't have to be small or slow or look like glorified golf carts. One of our former CEOs said this, and it's actually apropos. Up until Tesla came out with the Roadster, electric vehicles looked like they were designed and built by people who fundamentally didn't believe you should drive a car. So we wanted to make it exciting. We wanted to take advantage of all the benefits of electric drive. And it was a very successful program. We actually could have kept going, but our contract for the gliders ran out. They were built on a Lotus chassis. And Elon's vision really was, our CEO, Elon Musk, his vision really was to build an electric vehicle from the ground up, to take advantage of all the benefits. And that's where we get to our second generation platform and our current model, the Model S. Some of you may have seen it at the event last night, and we have a few showrooms around town here. But now we're talking, instead of 500 cars a year, last year we built 35,000 cars in 1 year. This year, if we hit all our marks, we'll get to between 50 and 55,000. No longer a two-seat sports car, but a 5-seat sedan with room for 2 kids in the back in optional child seats. A car that goes 0 to 60 in as little as 3.2 seconds. That is McLaren F1 speeds. And probably some of you have seen on YouTube, another disruptor, the videos of people who have experienced the insane mode on our car. Okay? And the car starts at $70,000. Now you've got a car that is almost half the price of our first generation, multiples more, and much more utility. Front and rear trunk space. I could go on about the car. It's an award-winning car that for the second year in a row, Consumer Reports ranked best overall pick from a car company that started back in 2003. But we're not done there yet. Obviously, we're coming out with the SUV, our Model X, that will come out later this fall, built on the Model S platform. And we're not even done there because, let's face it, $70,000 is still a pretty high price point. In 2 more years, 2017, we're going to come out with our third generation vehicle. Quantities targeted at 200,000+ units a year at a price point starting at $35,000. So like that cell phone, like the flat screen TVs, high price points, small volume, mid price points, mid volumes, high volume, low price point. That is basically the business plan for the entire company. I talked a little bit about the Model S and some of the features. I won't spend much time here, but you can see that it is revolutionary in many respects. The Model X, which is coming out this fall, again, will be revolutionary in many respects. All-wheel drive in an electric SUV. Something that folks have heard a lot about, Falcon wing doors. And a lot of people ask, well, that's kind of gimmicky. Why are you guys doing that? Well, actually, you can see by the diagram, one of the biggest problems that traditional minivans, traditional SUVs have is to get to that third row, you have to fold or you have to climb over that second seat. Well, the Falcon wing doors actually give you step-in access to that second and third row. It allows the largest opening possible while keeping the structural integrity of the car. And by the way, something that's not heavily advertised about this SUV, and especially probably appropriate for folks in this part of the country, this vehicle will have Class 3 towing capability. That means over 5,000 pounds, actually close to 10,000 pounds towing capability. But we're not just disrupting in cars, it's also the way we're selling cars. And some of you may have seen the press about our battles with traditional dealers. What we do is slightly different. We don't make you go to a dealer and haggle over price. We open up our own stores. A lot of folks are saying, well, why are you doing that? You could go to franchise dealers, it'd be very simple, you could get your products out there. You know what, that's all true. But as a disruptor, getting electric vehicles out there is more about educating consumers about all the benefits of electric drive. Instant torque from 0 RPM. No oil changes, no spark plugs, no high temperature coolant. 0 required maintenance on Model S for the entire 8 years, unlimited miles of that powertrain warranty. So if you do nothing but plug your car in and drive, if anything goes wrong with the powertrain, that's the motor, that's the power electronics, and yes, that's the battery, Tesla will cover that. So everything I've just told you about all the pros of electric vehicles are the cons of the incumbent technology of gasoline vehicles. A dealer, an independent dealer, cannot be profitable selling Teslas alone. Last year we produced 35,000. By comparison, in 2013, GM produced 9 million vehicles. We are not even rounding error right now. We'll get there, but we're not there yet. And so a dealer can't make money, so they have to sell something else. That something else is the incumbent technology of gasoline-powered vehicles. Now you set up an inherent conflict of interest. Does a dealer move the cars they know they can move and are profitable, and by the way, will have to come back for service? Or do they go with the Tesla, where you spend 2 or 3 hours trying to educate a consumer about the benefits of electric drive? This is why we're doing it on our own. The first question you hear if you walk into one of our stores is not, what can I do to get you in a car today? It's, what would you like to learn about electric vehicles? What can I tell you about Tesla? Our service centers are unique, and it's by virtue of the fact that our cars are unique. Now, this picture shows a service center that looks, you know, pretty typical, waiting area, bays. But what I'm also showing you are our Tesla Rangers. And service on a Tesla is very much different. Tesla cars are basically computers on wheels. And we are remotely connected to every single one of our cars, with our owner's permission, of course. There's a switch, you can turn off the remote access. But we monitor that car. We don't care where you're going. What we want to know is, how is the car operating? Is the battery working? Are the electronics working? Is everything going well? And what we will do is we will send updates to you over the air so that your car is never out of date. Just about every feature that is in our Model S now, and a car that's rolling off the line today, is a feature that we've been able to update in our original vehicles released in 2012. Think of it, again, like the smartphone, where you get a new operating system, and these updates are free. So for example, we just rolled out an update where people are worried about what happens if I run out of charge, range anxiety. We've rolled out new software that basically has the car calculate where you are, where you're going, and whether you have the range to get there. It will find charging stations, either superchargers or standard public charging, and direct you to that so you will never run out of charge. Everyone who bought a Tesla, including the very first car that rolled off the line, has that software update, and it's all for free. Now, the service part of this is great, because if your car ever breaks down, the first thing we're going to do is remote in. And if there's a software problem, guess what? We'll send that patch over the air. You don't have to worry about coming into a service center. That service will come to you over the cellular network and patch that car. If we need to see the car, remember that we've patched in. You still don't have to come into the service. We have our Tesla Rangers. We will come out to you. Much like when the big rigs break down on the highway, they don't tow these big rigs to the shop comes out to them. We will come to your home or office. We've already figured out what's wrong with your car since we remoted in, and we will repair it right there. Worst comes to worst, if you have to come to a service center, we have them in strategic locations. We actually have more service than we have retail locations. We will also flatbed a car out to you, a loaner, a Tesla, that is at least as good as, if not better than, the car you're driving, so that you can drive it, take your car back, fix it, and bring it back and swap out. Oh, and by the way, if you like that loaner better than your own car, we'll work out a trade. Superchargers. I wanted to mention a little bit about superchargers, because one of the things people always ask is, well, that's great. You've got 270 miles of range on a single charge with a Model S. That's great for around town driving, but I'm in Atlanta. I want to go up north to Boston or down south to Florida. How do I do that? Or I want to go to LA. Well, you can do that with our supercharger. Our superchargers are a proprietary network we've put up ourselves. It will put 200 miles of charge back in that car in as little as 30 minutes. A full charge in about an hour. We put these in strategic locations, malls, rest stops, other locations, so that you're on a long road trip, you stop by the supercharger, you go get a cup of coffee, have a meal, come back, your car is fully charged. And by the way, the superchargers, the energy in that, free for life. You can literally drive around the country and never pay a dime for the energy you need. And what impact have the superchargers had? Our owners, plugging into superchargers, 87 million miles traveled. That's 25 million kilowatts of energy, abating 99 million pounds of CO2, and offsetting nearly 4 million gallons of gasoline. We could tell the Middle East to keep their oil. Our production's different too. We were able to, during 2008, the downturn in the industry, purchased a former GM plant for our vehicle production. Let me talk about that. The Tesla factory. The historic capacity of this factory is 400,000 vehicles a year, 5.5 million square feet of manufacturing space. We picked this up for $42 million. It's a $1 billion factory that we got at a fire sale price, including a lot of the equipment that we needed to do that. Obviously, we rehabbed it, put in some lines, and now we're producing cars. A factory that used to employ 4,000 American workers is now employing close to 8,000 American workers. And our Gigafactory. Some of you may have heard, the biggest component that we're produced overseas right now are our cells. The 18650 cell that makes up the heart of the battery pack. And that's about 40% of the vehicle. The rest of the vehicle, the rest of the components, are actually built from suppliers all over the United States. We are roughly 55% US content, 100% US built vehicle. And by the way, about a half a dozen of those suppliers are located right here in Georgia. But that's not enough for us. We want to keep pushing that boundary. This is about investing in American technology for American innovation. So we're building the Gigafactory. When we are done, this facility will be double the size of our Fremont factory. It will literally double the entire world's capacity for the production of lithium-ion cells. When we are done, 98% of Tesla vehicles will be US content and always built in the United States. The Gigafactory will also employ directly 6,500 employees. Some projections have us total direct and indirect 22,000 jobs in northern Nevada. We are literally changing the face of this state and bringing Nevada up into the 21st century. I want to talk a little bit more about our battery technology and that Tesla's not just a car company. In fact, it's often been said around Tesla by our leadership that the world didn't need another car company that was looking at cars in a traditional way. We needed a company that was willing to take technology and put it back into transportation, but then even go beyond there. So what we're doing is we're leveraging our storage systems, our batteries, for stationary storage. Folks may ask, well, what can you do with that? Actually, quite a lot. And we've got a picture here of what our stationary storage, our battery arrays look like. Imagine a world right now, well, we're in a world right now where a power facility capacity is defined by peak load, the heat of summer in July and August in Atlanta when all the air conditioners are running. Georgia Power has to have facilities that can meet that peak demand at any time. Problem is that peak demand doesn't always occur. It's not constant. At night, power levels drop. What do? They use time of use rates. They try to shunt that power out as much as possible because, frankly, it's too difficult to shut down and start up these massive power generating facilities. Well, imagine a world if you could scale up stationary storage, batteries, where now a power plant does not have to be at peak capacity. It could take all those downtimes at night when power demands are low in the off season, store it into a stationary storage array. And then when that peak demand comes, they don't have to crank up the power anymore. They just pull it off of the stationary source. Go a step further. Imagine neighborhoods with solar panels hooked up to a small mini grid that has a battery storage system at the end of a cul-de-sac, not reliant on a major grid. When storms like Superstorm Sandy that hit in New Jersey come, you don't have to worry about taking out a central power grid. You've got mini grids going around. Think about the applications in third world countries that don't have the infrastructure we do. We can now bring them power, sustainable power, through wind, through solar. What's the biggest criticism? Well, the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. With stationary storage, you can level all of that out. Imagine the applications for our military bases, where they don't have to be vulnerable or reliant on grid technology. The potential for stationary storage is absolutely huge. And a lot of people have asked, you're building a 10 million square foot facility to produce batteries to double the world's capacity of lithium ion. You're not going to produce that many cars. Guess what? They're right. We're not going to produce that many cars. We're doing other things as well. And that's what disruptive technology is all about. That is basically it for my presentation. I want to thank you all for listening so attentively. I think we have a few minutes. I'm happy to take any questions. That's a good question. I don't have that figure offhand. I would have to get back to you, but Elon Musk has told us at the factory that we can't produce the most energy efficient, greenest vehicles and not do it in an environmentally friendly way. So I think I might have a picture. You can barely see it, but if you look at the upper right-hand corner of that battery cell manufacturing, you'll notice some windmills, kind of fuzzy in the background. Part of our upbring on this facility is to have solar power, wind power generation, and to make this cell manufacturing facility a zero grid-dependent energy consumer. Yeah, so we are always looking at how we can expand the range of our vehicles, the energy density of our cells. I'll give you a great example. The Roadster, when we came out, was 245 miles of range. That's on the EPA city highway cycle. The current Model S is rated for 270 miles of range, which doesn't sound like a big increase, but that's on EPA's new 5 cycle. So that's not only city and highway, that also takes into account air conditioning use, high-speed driving up to 80 miles per hour, and cold weather operation with the heater on. So if we were to use the old city highway cycle, the Model S actually gets well over 300 miles of range. And in fact, we announced a program where our early Roadster owners can now upgrade their battery packs and get up to 400 miles of range on our newest technology. So year after year, it's not quite Moore's Law where we're doubling the capacity of computing, we're not doubling the capacity of batteries, but we are doing a steady improvement of anywhere to 10 to 15% year after year. Well, actually, I could point to a local example, and it's the reason why, while I'm happy to give this speech and answer questions, unfortunately I have to run after my speaking engagement's over. Traditional dealers are a good example. We are in a nationwide fight, state by state, for the right to sell our cars. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what do you mean the right to sell your cars? Don't I go to a Ford? Don't I buy my car now from Ford, GM, Toyota right now? Actually, no. There are a series of laws all over the nation that were intended, state by state, to govern the relationship between independent dealers, franchisees, and their franchisors. And these laws had a place 50, 60 years ago to level the playing field between the manufacturers, the more powerful manufacturers, and the less powerful, often family-owned dealers. Well, fast forward to where we are today, those family dealerships have now become giant conglomerates. We've got folks like AutoNation, we've got folks, I'll have to think of some other major ones, but you could probably think of some of the major dealers around Atlanta, and they're using those laws to say that a manufacturer can't sell direct. Now that sounds really weird, but basically you invent a product, you build a product, but you're not allowed to sell it directly to consumers. So we're fighting this battle on a state-by-state basis, and actually we're having some modicum of success. So yesterday, I'm happy to report that we passed out of second reading in the Senate on a bill that would allow us to open up to 5 stores in Georgia with no limit on the number of vehicles we can sell. That bill goes to the full Senate floor later this morning, and if it's voted out of the Senate, it'll go straight to the governor's desk to sign. Thank you. I do have to add that this legislation wouldn't have been possible, not only from the great work that our lobbyists on the ground here have done, but also because we sat down with the Georgia auto dealers and we worked out a compromise to be able to move forward in this way. So I don't mean to denigrate, all dealer organizations. In fact, there have been a number of them who've recognized new technology, who've recognized there's a new way of doing business, and have said, look, you know what? We can compete with you guys. So not only Georgia, but Tennessee, Pennsylvania, we've all reached amicable settlements with these states. Unfortunately, in others, Texas, Arizona, Maryland, Connecticut, we're still fighting those fights. So that's a great example of traditional industry trying to stop someone who's coming in with new technology in a disruptive way. The question had been, when do we think cars will drive themselves, and how will that disrupt the automotive market? Cars that completely drive themselves are still years away, okay? We have a program, obviously Elon's talked about it, called Autopilot, and I think there's some misconceptions about what that is. There's a couple of schools of thought. First school of thought is, you get rid of the driver. You make it completely automated. And that's what I'm talking about that's many, many years away. There's another school of thought, and it's one that Tesla ascribes to, that the driver should always be able to drive their own vehicle. And Elon's tweeted this out because there's been some confusion. Autopilot, the theory behind autopilot is you always want to have that thinking, smart, individual, human driver behind the wheel. Autopilot gives them inputs, information, functionality that will help that driver make smarter, safer decisions. Think of it like an airplane. You always want to have that pilot, reacting and being able to adjust to conditions during the hardest parts of flight, takeoff and landing. But when you're cruising at 30,000 feet and you're just moving along, you let autopilot take over because you're keeping that level flight. Same idea with Tesla Autopilot. So the features that we're going to roll out this summer and that were announced earlier are basically the ability to have adaptive cruise control and lane departure combined, so that you can set that cruise control. It'll maintain that 2 to 6 car length following distance that you set, and be able to remind you to keep in that lane or help keep you in that lane with steering. At any time, you'll be able to override those with the brakes, with the steering wheel, but it will help you be a better driver. And that is the philosophy we're moving forward with. That's a good question. The question was, do we see new technology companies like Apple, like Google, Virgin, entering the space and being a threat to the traditional industry? One of our goals here was really, and it's our corporate mission, was to inspire other manufacturers to follow our lead. I'm happy to report that since we've come out with the Roadster and since we've come out with the Model S, there is an incredible amount of selection in alternative powertrain technology, and particularly EVs. You've got the Nissan Leaf. You've got the Ford Focus EV, the Ford C-Max. You've got VW talking about electric vehicles, both under Audi and VW. It's actually encouraging to see the traditional industry respond. You've got the Chevy Volt, and now soon the Chevy Bolt, an all-electric vehicle. You've got the Cadillac ELR, Infiniti. We like to say that a lot of these vehicles are inspired as the technology has come forward, not just by Tesla, but by others. And it's interesting that the rate of adoption hasn't been stronger. In fact, last year, Elon Musk was basically disappointed in the number of new entrants. And at this point, we're not worried about the competition amongst electric vehicles. Our competition is the traditional internal combustion engine equipped vehicles. Okay, with a new vehicle market in the United States of 17 million vehicles, again, that's really, really small. We need to get more electric vehicles out there. We need to get more alternatives out there. And the more players that come in, the better. In fact, Elon put the company's money where its mouth is and basically threw open our patents last year. So that if any company out there wants to use Tesla technology, including the superchargers, to stand up their own electric vehicle program, we would not go after them for patent infringement. In fact, we would encourage it. And that's also part of being a disruptor. Looking at traditional patent laws not as a protection, but as a barrier to new technology. We think it's great, absolutely wonderful that there are companies like Apple, like Google looking at this, and that we cheered the announcement that Richard Branson out of Virgin is looking at electric vehicles too. The more the better, and there's room for every player in this growing market. So the question is, how has our workforce grown, and how have we met the challenges of the new workforce coming in? I think fundamentally, Tesla has started to create its own buzz with what we're doing. I think the fact that we're on the cutting edge of technology, that we are known as a disruptor in the automotive industry, and that we are more than just an automotive company, that we are a technology company, is starting to attract more and more talent. It helps to be in the heart of Silicon Valley, of course, but that said, it also helps to be a part of an industry that has far-reaching influence. So we get engineers coming in from all over the United States, frankly, from all over the world, coming in to want to work for Tesla. And of course, we use social media, the website, to announce different posts. We have had an explosive rate of growth. As I said at the start, when I started 4.5 years ago, 400 employees, now over 11,000, and we continue to grow. So you're right, it's a challenge, and I don't envy our HR department, because certainly, managing that growth, finding those slots, integrating, it's a challenge that any new company is always going to face, and we constantly have to look at that. Do we have skills that are new and unique? You mean per employee, or? Okay. Well, I mean, there's a certain quote-unquote Tesla personality that we look for. And frankly, the fact that you guys are all members of TAG speaks to the fact that you have that personality already. Someone who's willing to challenge the status quo. Someone who doesn't give as a reason for doing something because everybody else is doing it. Someone who's willing to look outside the traditional industry and say, there's a better way to do this. One of the worst things you can ever do at Tesla is say, we can't do something. It's always, what can we do? What options do we have? And it's a different mindset of thinking. And frankly, I don't think it was going to come from the traditional industry, because you still hear those things. And occasionally, there are Tesla employees who say it, but we have to watch ourselves and we have to police ourselves. It's not about what can't be done or what everybody else is doing. It's what's new that can be done and what we can do. Yeah, that's a good question. The question was, what do we do about issues like the Highway Trust Fund, gasoline taxes that go to pay for bridges, roads, infrastructure, and the fact that electric vehicles aren't paying for that currently? You're right, and that actually speaks to a larger issue. Because as technology moves forward in electric vehicles, technology is also not standing still in some other areas. So now you've got vehicles, motor vehicles, that get better and better gas mileage. A Chevy Cruze, for example, gets 45 miles to the gallon. They're not paying a whole lot of gas tax. This is a broader fleet-wide issue. And the position at Tesla is that every road user should and must pay their fair share of what that is. Now, what that is a good question, and I know there's a bill before the Georgia legislature right now to level a state fee on EVs that's I believe it's $200, okay? We have not actually gotten involved in that issue to date, because our view is, first we have to get to the table. First we have to be able to open up stores and sell. Or as I like to say, it's no good to talk about dessert when you're not allowed a seat at the dinner table. So we have to get through that first. But when we do get through that, it is important to have this conversation. And it's a conversation that goes to the broader US fleet as a whole. I mean, the ideal way to do this, and the most fair way to do this, would be to have some type of tax tied to vehicle miles traveled. The more roads you use, the more you would pay for those roads you used. Of course, those come up with a host of issues like privacy, accuracy, enforcement, measurement. I think this is a larger debate we are happy to engage with as Tesla on the policy side. I don't think there are any easy answers, but at the end of the day, the position of the company is that every road user should pay its fair share. The company culture is, frankly, just amazing. It's actually funny. 6 months after I started at Tesla, my wife sat me down and she said, you were a partner at 2 major law firms, and you worked in government, and you've been at this for 20 years. And I'm like, yeah, that's all true. And she says, you're now working harder than you ever have, okay? You're on the go all the time. You're traveling more than you ever have. I never see you. And I said, no, I understand that. And she said, you're being paid less. Why are you doing this? And I said, there's something about the Tesla mission. We are literally trying to change the world for the better. And, rather than tell further about me, I think a really illustrative story is about Elon Musk. So in 2008, it was his hardest year ever. Tesla was on the verge of bankruptcy. SpaceX, his other company, had 3 failed launches of rocket ships. He was living basically on borrowed money from friends. He took the last of his money, and most folks know about Elon Musk, but Elon Musk, let me back up a little, made his fortune with through the internet. First, he invented a software called X.com. It was the basis for modern mapping software. He sold that for tens of millions of dollars, went into a small company called PayPal, was one of the executives, in fact, was the CEO, and sold that for hundreds of millions of dollars. Here's a guy who is got more money than he will ever need for his lifetime. He's set. He's done. He can go sit on a tropical island and sip tropical drinks the rest of his days and be perfectly happy. Frankly, I might have done that myself. But he didn't do that. He said, what are humanity's problems? And he saw 3 problems. He said, first, sustainable energy. So he's chairman of the board of his cousin's company, Solar City. He said, we need sustainable transportation, so he started Tesla. And humanity has to move beyond Earth. We've got to look at interstellar travel. So he founded SpaceX. 3 Elon Musk companies. Okay, so back to 2008. Tesla's about to go under. We've got maybe 2 weeks of payroll left, maybe. SpaceX looks like it's about to fail too. He takes the last of his millions, tens of millions, he's down to tens of millions, and basically says, the comfortable lifestyle I described, he takes that and puts it all into Tesla, not knowing if it succeeds or not. If Tesla fails after he puts that money in, if SpaceX fails, he's done, he's bankrupt. He starts from square one. He took everything he had and rolled it into those companies. Unfortunately, through hard work, through good talent, and through the inspiration that Elon provides to all of us, Tesla got turned around, cars started getting delivered, more orders came in, and by the end of 2008, 4th rocket launch goes up, huge success. NASA calls shortly after and says, we want to hire you and basically give you $1 billion contract to supply the space station. And so Elon went from one of the roughest years he's ever had to success because he's willing to bet it all. And by the way, what some people don't know is in 2008, he was also going through a divorce. So talk about challenges. This is a man who truly believes in his vision, and that inspires all of us at Tesla to keep pushing forward. I saw a question in the back. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question as well, because everyone asks us, what do you do with your battery packs when they're done? Do you just throw them away? First and foremost, the chemical makeup of our battery packs is such that there are no hazardous materials. So there are no US EPA regulated hazardous materials or hazardous wastes in those packs. We could literally throw them into a landfill, but we don't want to do that because these are lithium-ion technology. So and in this technology, lithium is not consumed. There are other elements in there as well, cobalt, nickel. Those aren't consumed either. Those are actually valuable. We take those battery packs back, right now we have a contractor doing this, breaking those down, recovering those materials, recovering those minerals, and when we're done, there's actually only a small amount of fluff that's actually disposed of. Our Gigafactory, part of the reason for the size is because we want to do this ourselves as well. So when that Gigafactory is fully operational, not only will we be creating and sending out lithium-ion cells and packs, we'll also be bringing them back, breaking them down, recovering the value of those, and recycling those 100%. Thank you all very much. Appreciate the time.
Phenomenal.
Thank you
so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciation for coming. Appreciate
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.